What's up, IBT family? Tonight, we look ahead to the 2024 rookie class and tell you what the top players could mean for your Dynasty Fantasy Football team. This and more on tonight's In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
Cause I've been in tune, out of touch, coming off the bench, trying to shake the funk, check your stat line, see who's up, that over, under, hit too clutch.
And I'm trying to avoid getting carried away with the jet sweep, sleeping on a trick play, predicting all of my moves like they seen every play. So I'm running it back, head down, get out of my way. And it's for the law with only one thing to do. I guess I'll say a prayer and put it all on the line for you. What they don't know, something they haven't seen. I find a gap off the screen and hit them right in between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it.
Just one thing to say, yeah, what they don't know, something they haven't seen. I'm off that mean Joe Green, it got me fading between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it. The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right. It is November 28th, 2023, and yes, we are 3/4 of the way through the NFL season. So we thought, what better way to spend the evening than talk about the next crop of rookies coming into the league? I am Seth Wilcox, still a jaded Penn State fan. Fuck Michigan. Fuck Ohio State. And I am joined by a guy who is possibly staying warm in an attic in Texas tonight, eating grass-fed steaks with all the cash he's been rolling in the college basketball season. Eric Romoff. Eric, what's up tonight, man? How are we doing post-Thanksgiving?
Man, can confirm staying warm, nice and toasty in my attic. And no grass-fed steaks tonight, but might be on the menu soon. That sounds pretty good. Those college basketball streets have been lucrative. Good week in DFS on the NFL side. So we're riding high heading into week 13.
There you go, man. Well, appreciate you being here. And guys, unfortunately, our usual planned guest, he got the flu. So we called up the only two guys who would answer and want to talk about rookies 5 months ahead of the NFL draft. They're the leaders of the shitheads, founders of South Harmon Fantasy Football, Mike and Adam. Boys, thanks for answering the call literally an hour before we went live tonight. How are we doing?
Doing well, man. I will say both fuck Ohio State and fuck Michigan I can get behind right now. And
okay.
Because that's true, as an Ohio State fan, I also think it's also true it is unfortunate that we're here to be the guest. We're not the primary guest, but listen, we're all you got right now, so we'll take it. Here we are. We're ready to talk. We're ready to talk the 2024, the 2025 class anytime. We'll talk Dynasty till we're blue in the face.
That's all we do, man. That's all we do. And go Hawks. Go Hawks. Between all the Big Ten fans in here, I'm the only one who's got a team in the championship game. It's weird. It's weird. Now
let's see what Kurt Ferentz has to say after getting his ass kicked here by Michigan.
Hey, whatever it is, bet the over, though, because it's going to be like 56
I was going to
say
bet the under, my guy.
No.
Your
Bet
Hawks
the over.
have been crushing the under.
No,
Didn't it drop to like 23 points last week finally?
Yeah, whatever it is, it's going to be like 50-something Michigan to 6.
Yeah,
maybe 8.
Michigan
Maybe we'll get a
cover by
safety.
Yeah.
Michigan will go over by themselves. But you had to call in the righty, right? A little reliever action.
Yes, sir.
We got it. You didn't just get one. I don't think it's illegal to have 2 relief pitchers, but it's fine. We can roll with it. It's football. Baseball don't make sense anyways.
There we go. We appreciate you guys being with us tonight. How's the season been over there at South Harmon Fantasy Football? What's new for the shitheads?
Oh, it's been wild, man. The shitheads are doing well. Fantasy's going well. Dynasty's going well. But I am kind of in that season. I know it says the way too early rookie ranks. I always get this, like, I want the season to be here, and all of a sudden it's here, and then you kind of get in the middle of the grind, and you go, fuck, I can't wait till it's rookie season.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I want some combine. I want some underwear Olympics. I want to see some dudes run some 4.3s. Let's go.
Yeah, I think the way too early is I guess it kind of fits right now because a lot of people that are just very much in their leagues are going to be thinking right now, I want to go win a title in about a month, right? But we always talk about whether it benefits us or not. That could be debated, but let's be a step ahead. Let's know 24 beforehand. Let's know 25 beforehand. Unfortunately, we were looking at one of our shitheads portfolio doing the trade show earlier today, and it wasn't the greatest of. We can just tell you there was a lot of RIPs on these teams, but it happens sometimes.
And this is a great time, as you guys kind of alluded to, because we're primarily a redraft show here, but this is kind of the time where you're getting the itch even in redraft. You might have a couple dynasty leagues and you just want to look ahead because there's not a lot to do right now. Trade deadlines have kind of passed. That was our last week's episode, getting you guys ready for that. We can still add some waiver wire targets. We're going to do that. And in the scope later in the show, we're going to take your questions from the forum. So let us know in the chat how we can help you, or head over to fantasyfootballadvice.com and let us know over there how we can best assist you. So we're going to go over Jeff Bell's rookie dynasty rankings. He provided those for us graciously before he got the flu. And then we're going to go over with Eric and Kyle our Christmas special rankings. So let's go ahead, guys. Let's jump into this in just a second. Kyle, how are we sounding tonight in the back end, audio producer extraordinaire? And are you ready for some fucking Christmas specials rankings tonight?
Hell yeah, I'm ready for Christmas special rankings. All I do all year is wait to talk about what I think about Christmas television specials. That's how I spend January through November. So you are stepping into a gauntlet. I'm letting you know that right now.
I will say it's one of the last things we talked about Saturday before you left the house. A couple beers were going on, some other things going around the fire. And I remember we walk inside and it was the end of the Grinch, the new Grinch. And Kyle's talking shit on that. He's talking shit on the Jim Carrey Grinch. So that's kind of what brought up that conversation. I thought we'd roll that into the end of Rave Rookie Reviews tonight. So just be ready for that, Kyle. Be ready, man.
You should be ready. You're the one. You all need to be ready.
Whoa. Kyle stays ready.
He's ready to go. Shout out to the IBT family in the chat as well tonight. We appreciate you guys. Looks like we got some shitheads coming over. Fizzle Dollars, let's go. What's up, man? Good to see you. We got Joey Cheesestick, LFG, Albert. Good evening, IBT. Good evening to you, Albert. We appreciate you, man, as always. Joey saying, Mike, first half Iowa, 0.5, gonna be a sweat. You getting down on that with our boy Joey?
I might bet the under on that one. I might bet the under on the half a point.
That was so good for a sweat.
Guys, let's go ahead. Let's jump into it here with Rave Rookie Reviews. I just gotta say with that drop, thank God for Senior Bowl, just like non-copywriting the shit out of all their footage. I have no idea why there's so much free Senior Bowl footage out there. You can't find these guys in college. You can't get them in the pros. But listen, you need some Senior Bowl footage, Eric. You know where to go, man.
Yeah, man. Senior Bowl is doing it for the culture, right? Just get that footage, get it out there, let people use it. Like, shout out. They're also they're pretty gracious with their media passes too. You can get there and cover those rookies pretty easily.
Mike, we might even be able to get you and Adam down there, I think.
Oh, we got to get down there sometime.
Yeah, we've been invited. I've last year I wanted to go down in Alabama. Listen, being from Ohio, I'm not jaded. I'm not going to act like I'm not going to go anywhere in the country. So you get me anywhere. So I want to go to the Reese Senior Bowl at some point, man.
We got T-Rock in the chat saying, OMG, I could listen to that transition all day. You know it. So, guys, we're going to look at Jeff Bell's top 12 Dynasty rookie ranks. And Jeff Bell, for those of you who don't know him, he's with Debbie Royale. He's with Football Guys. He kind of leads their Dynasty unit over there. Very brilliant mind in the space. So we're going to crack this thing open. We're going to go through his top 14 technically. Let's start with Caleb Williams, though. He's obviously, I think, the consensus 101 in Superflex right now. There's a little bit of a debate, maybe, but it's another mobile pocket passer, 2022 Heisman. He won it after transferring from Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley. Hasn't had as spectacular of a junior season this year, Mike, but still a guy I think in many people's eyes who's a can't miss prospect. Is he that for you as we head into 2024?
His value definitely is. Let me say that. That's not a slight against him, but people are already projecting him as the next Patrick Mahomes, right? Like the next Trevor Lawrence as a prospect, the next Andrew Luck. Like this is the kind of talent that people think they're getting. I'm not going to necessarily disagree with it. I just, for me personally, I think it's a lot closer, and I would personally have Drake Maye at 1 over Caleb Williams. I think he does a few things a little bit better. Plays a little bit better within a structure, and you see with some of these guys who play out of structure, sometimes they struggle. They get the wrong type of coach. Coach doesn't have any tolerance for that shit. All of a sudden, some of those whispers start to pop up. Not to poke holes in Caleb Williams. He's definitely a generational type prospect at the quarterback position, but I don't think for me it's a slam dunk 101. Now, for people in dynasty value, for sure. Like if I'm on the clock right now, you told me I had to make the pick, it's Caleb Williams, because then I'm going to see if I can get Drake Maye plus.
I like it. Low leverage spot for you. How do we look at this, Adam? If you're in a dynasty start or a dynasty rookie draft right now, how are you preparing this 101 pick? And where do you think Caleb Williams possibly even lands in the draft? We know the Bears probably holding on to that first pick, but do they use it on him? Do they trade out again? We know what they got last year. Could they get a king's ransom?
Yeah, I mean they definitely could. I think when you think about what they got last year, Caleb Williams, I think at this point is almost any GM that needs a quarterback could get themselves behind trading whatever the hell you got for Bryce Young plus some. So
yeah,
I think if the beautiful thing for both them and the Cardinals, depending on how it finishes, is they have their pick of the litter. Like they could both move on. The Bears a little easier because they haven't paid Fields, right? But I do think the NFL just is so devoid of quarterback options that someone will trade for Kyler Murray if that was the case. I actually I will hope. I'm hoping that both teams, the Bears and the Cardinals, hold on to the quarterbacks that they have, and someone trades into the 101 or whatever pick Caleb becomes. I just don't want to see Caleb Williams, frankly, go to New England. That's like the one spot I don't want to see him go to. Everywhere else, I'm pretty comfortable. I'll say for me, to Mike's point, the top 3. So I have a very big tier break, I think, right now at the 3rd spot. I'll include Marvin Harrison Jr. as one of the in values again. He's not a quarterback in Superflex, but he is going to be probably right there with Jamar Chase in the top 3-ish. You know, A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, for Fizzle, who's here. Let me make sure. I would have not said it if it wasn't for Fizzle, but we'll appease him today. You know, he's going to be in that mix. So I think when you look at the top 3, I'm very interested if I have the ability to get out of 101 and go to 103 if possible, 102 if possible. Like that's something I think you can definitely get done. And I think the reality is I'm not going to be unhappy walking away with any one of those 3 players.
Okay, let's talk about Marvin Harrison Jr., the guy you just brought up here. Maserati Marv, I can say it in my Gus Johnson voice. I could hear him say that all day. I love when Gus Johnson rips that out. The back-to-back 1,200-yard seasons, 14 touchdowns for him once again here, Eric. Where does he rank for you among wide receivers day one in the NFL as far as a dynasty lens is concerned?
Yeah, I mean he's clearly the far and away the top rookie wide receiver in terms of dynasty rankings, right? Looking at the dynasty rankings overall, I mean, I was gonna qualify it with depending on where he lands, but realistically, almost regardless of landing spot, he's gonna be sniffing around the top 5 pretty quickly, right? Like he's such an incredibly polished prospect. Like he has everything that you're looking for in terms of his ability to get off the line, to create separation, to win contested catches, right? Like he checks so many boxes that, regardless of what offense he falls into, he's immediately going to be their top pass catcher and really draw some pretty heavy target volume from day one.
All right, I want to play a quick game. I'm just going to throw out a couple names, and you guys tell me, would you rather have this wide receiver or the pick that could secure Marvin Harrison Jr.? Let's start. A.J. Brown.
Give me Marv. Give me Marv. A little bit safer.
Oh, I had to let Mike go there. It's
I know.
Marvin Harrison Jr. for me. So, and him being the Eagles fan, I had to make sure he said that first. I'm in agreement. I think too, knowing for me anyway, the way the game works in Dynasty is when that pick becomes available to have it. Like if I have the button on him or it's AJ Brown, that whole time of year is just everybody wants youth. So like that's another reason why I'm saying that.
Okay, Eric, where do you stand?
Yeah, sweep it. Right. I think that's really there at the line, right? But when you're talking about a guy that is going to be turning 27 next year in AJ Brown, right? Like, you can do a lot with an incoming stud rookie if you're trying to build up your own roster. You want to flip him for pieces, right? Like, I mean, I know I just said I would give him top 5, and it still feels gross to say out loud, but yeah, I would go with Maserati Marv.
Let's go.
What about Fizzle Dallas saying CeeDee Lamb here, guys? Where are you going on this one?
That's why I had to appease him, man. Put him in the conversation. Just make sure he felt warranted. Okay. I think he is there though. Actually, I do. But I'll still take Marv.
Eric, any digression? Marv for you too?
Ooh, I'll digress. But I'm higher on CD than most.
Okay. Jamar Chase, last one.
I will still take Jamar Chase.
Same. and honestly, like I'll just say the CD and Marv and Jamar Chase thing comes down to little tiebreakers and the way that the community is going to view. I just know everybody is going to get so far ahead of themselves on Marvin Harrison Jr. that the only people I'll take straight up ahead of him in Dynasty right now, guaranteed, is locked in Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase.
Just think about this though with Marv. He is just as good, if not better, as a prospect than Jamar Chase. Right? We saw one dynamite year from Jamar Chase.
Yes.
And then COVID happened. We didn't see Jamar Chase. The fervor wasn't at this level at this time for Jamar Chase before he came out as a rookie and entered the NFL draft. It was a much slower build-up, and the people are like, oh, yeah, remember, that guy was amazing. Like, we got to go get him. And he started extremely high without that fervor. Marv has already blown through this, and it's only going to keep going up from here. So when you talk about dynasty values, it's not that I think production-wise, I'm not saying that Marvin Harrison is going to be better than CeeDee Lamb or A.J. Brown, but I always keep the dynasty value in the back of my mind because there's going to become a time and there's going to be a lot more people interested in my Marvin Harrison Jr. share than there would be a CeeDee Lamb or an A.J. Brown because they go, oh, they're old, or one of them's got Mike McCarthy and that guy could screw him over next week. So when I talk about these guys, it's always from a dynasty value lens, and we have so much off-season time where you're able to capitalize on that.
I love it. Let's talk about the third player in this pack of 3 to start off the Dynasty rookie rankings, and it's Drake Maye. You alluded to him as potentially your QB1, Mike, quarterback out of UNC. He's still only 21 years old. This is kind of another mobile pocket passer, exploded as a freshman, 400 yards, 34 TDs, but kind of regressed a bit here this season, only 24 touchdowns. But he has some pretty good rushing upside here as well, Mike. Is that why you prefer him over Caleb Williams? And do you think that rushing production can follow him to the NFL?
I really loved Sam Howell when he was at USC and a lot of things he did in that offense. And now you're seeing it this year that Sam Howell is actually a pretty damn competent quarterback, right? Like, you and I talked about him, Seth, when you were on 4D just a couple weeks ago about how I wanted to buy a lot of Sam Howell, and I'm buying into him. Drake Maye, to me, from the moment he stepped on the field, looked like a 6'4", 230-pound Sam Howell. Exactly like it, just bigger. No size concerns. There's some issues within that offense. People are going to talk about, well, he threw some interceptions. That team as a whole, the offensive line still wasn't very good. His best receiver by far was Devontae Walker, and that guy didn't play for most of the season because the NCAA was on their bullshit. You saw him have some monster games when Devontae Walker was cleared and came back and just fit right into that offense. I would have loved to be able to see what Drake Maye could have done with a full season of chemistry with him.
Yeah.
But this season really didn't give me any more concerns than what you should have already had, what you have with young quarterbacks in general. Landing spot's going to be a big one for him, just like Caleb Williams, somebody who's going to be patient and actually not try to rush him and put too much on him right away. But he's got all the talent in the world. Mobile, can throw, rocket arm, accurate when he wants to be. Decision making needs to be worked on, but so does it with Caleb Williams.
Adam, your thoughts on him and potentially maybe a landing spot like the New England Patriots as reflected here in the chat?
Yeah, I think so. With Drake Maye, I'll just say in the vibes I'm getting right now, it really reminds me a lot of, from the community anyway, of like Justin Herbert. And now Mike's very high on Drake Maye,
okay.
right? I'm very high on Drake Maye too. But the reason I say that is Mike talked about him at 101, his 101 to shake things up. And if you don't know Mike, let me introduce you to my friend Mike. He's going to stir the pot often and early. All right. So, but I just want to let you know that the reality is for the Dynasty community, I think, while I have the tier at 3, a lot of people, I feel like they say we're going to get a generational elite quarterback in Caleb. And I also get that in Marvin Harrison Jr. And then Drake Maye is kind of this like, he could be good, but it's Drake Maye. It's North Carolina. He's had a bad year. There's a lot of these excuses or narratives coming into the fold, which really fit the thing for Justin Herbert. And if you remember, Justin Herbert was not in the same tier as Burrow, was not in the same tier as Tua Tagovailoa. That draft class, he kind of slipped. And I think that the way Drake Maye plays, the ability he has, and kind of that little bit of, I don't want to truly call it stink, because it's not to the level that Herbert had, but the fact that he's not being discussed really for most people in that same tier is why, for me, I feel there's a lot of like this Herbert vibe for just how his dynasty value is. But I also see the way that he plays as that way. And we saw Justin Herbert recently run for like 80-some yards in a game. I absolutely think Drake Maye has that ability. I don't think it's something he's going to just, design runs in this guy that's elite rushing talent. But the upside, I think, is there to get out of the pocket, to scramble, and to make plays with his legs when they're there. So for me, Drake Maye's checking all the boxes. So that's, again, why I say 103 for me is where the line is just like, if I can be in the top 3, I think it's monumentally different than the picks 4 and below.
Eric, what do you do if you're in a situation where you have one of these top 3 picks? Let's say Maserati Marv is off the board and you already have 2 great quarterbacks. What do? Do you move the pick? Do you hold on to the pick and make that selection for one of these top quarterbacks and just ride that out? Or how do you dice that up?
Yeah, generally I'm right there with Adam, right? Like I want to do everything that I can to move to the 103. So if I'm at the 102 and Marv's off the board, I want to move back that one spot and gather as many assets as I can. After that point, I mean, I don't mind sitting on these guys, right? Like this is why we have taxi squads in Dynasty, right? Like the flexibility that you have. I've got a couple of Dynasty builds where I've got Fields and Lamar Jackson and CJ Stroud sitting on my taxi squad, right? Like, the leverage that I have over the rest of the league is immense, right? Because they're all so thirsty for quarterbacks, and I've just got an embarrassment of riches, and you can very much so find yourself in that position by capturing either of the top 2 quarterbacks in this year's class.
All right, let's look at Brock Bowers, tight end, Georgia. And listen, it did not matter one damn that this guy's senior season in high school, he wasn't allowed to play it because of COVID. This guy came out, he didn't give a fuck, 14 total touchdowns, 882 yards as a freshman, won the John Mackey Award as a sophomore. We know he has a little bit of an injury history popped up here this season with Georgia. Tell us about Bowers. How are we feeling about him, Adam, coming into this next year? Could it be a Kyle Pitts situation where it takes a couple years and you're just frustrated if you spend that high capital on him?
Yeah, I think so. With Brock Bowers, it's interesting, and I think timing is going to be huge because if it was just Kyle Pitts, right, you alluded to him, and Kyle Pitts had an unbelievable rookie season. You remember, different offensive situation, Matt Ryan in his last year, right, and then all of a sudden we get Arthur Smith coming over, and you see how monumentally different the scheme is and how much they're using him and how little they're really throwing the ball to him at all, and how different his value is now than it was going into the year after he came off this incredible season. Now, people would, if it was just that one, I think people would remember that and they'd kind of be a little more jaded with Brock Bowers. But now we're coming off this year, guys, where you got Sam Laporta all of a sudden in the mix at tight end 1. You got Dalton Kincaid starting slow, but people are starting to see Dalton Kincaid really matter. And I think those 2 guys in particular getting very high up in the dynasty rankings for tight end is going to bring back this dynasty absolute allure for Brock Bowers. And frankly, for me, the tight end position. So this is no knock against Brock Bowers, but the way Dynasty works, and for me, fantasy football, and the way I'm viewing things, you have got to be in a extremely high tight end premium, 2 tight end type league at all. And I'm talking extremely. I'm not talking any of these juiced up ones. I'm talking 2-point tight end premium plus or something. For me to say, like, Brock Bowers is worth the 104 spot. And for me, I think the reality is he's going to be in the conversation starting there. 104, 105, 106, Dynasty startups, crazy high, 4th, 5th round type stuff. I'm good. I'm not taking him in any of those spots. The only thing is, if I had a player like him, I'm looking to move him in his rookie year. And it's not even that he can't end up being one of the great ones. I'm not going to say he can't. It's just, for me, that position is not worth the type of investment that he's going to cost. And the reality is, for them to be the elite ones, Sam Laporta made the jump, right? He's in the tight end 1 discussion, but he's not producing like that. You're not paying for his production. He's not producing like Kyle Pitts, like TJ Hawkinson, like Mark Andrews before the injury. So I don't want to sit around and wait on that in Dynasty, if that makes sense. So I'm going to end up being a passer of Brock Bowers, frankly.
Eric, this is probably music to your ears because you hate to be the guy to overvalue some of these one-off positions, specifically the tight end.
Yeah, I mean, say it louder for the people in the back, right? Like I had a fully loaded Dynasty team where I took Dalton Kincaid at the 109, and I felt really gross about it. Like for me, you go address tight end when you're in a win now window, right? So like if there's some speculative guys that you want to add, very late in the first into the second round, fine, right? But 104, even for a guy that looks as promising as Bowers, like just philosophically, it's hard for me to get to that place.
Mike, any final thoughts on Georgia Pride?
A lot with Adam. And
Okay.
This would be a prime spot too. Like if we get to draft season and Brock Bowers is a lot of people's consensus 104, right? Regardless of what the tight end premium is or start 2 tight ends or anything like that, right? If you're hearing this drumbeat because he got top 15 draft capital or whatever the case may be, this is going to be the prime spot where I look at it, because this tier for me is so big and there's so many good players in here where it's like you give me any pick, out to like 108, 109, 110 with this tier of players, and you give me any type of plus on top, like a future second, something like that, for me to move back so you can move up to the 104. Good luck with Brock Bowers, my friend. You take him, you have him, you enjoy the fruits of rookie tight endom. When if they hit, they probably don't matter. They're not really changing the game for you in fantasy. So you have fun with that, and then I'll go select one of these awesome wide receivers or this third quarterback in this class or whatever it may be.
And man, I'll just say real quick, that's such a big point, and why for me it's a tier break at 103, and then 104. Like I don't want people to think that just because the 101, 102, 103 are immensely valuable that means to write off the rest of the class. Do not do that. This class is pretty damn good at receiver, and there's a lot of them in the back end of the first round, I think, all the way going through. So we can get into some of those other guys too, but it's going to be very interesting.
100%. We got Hoove in the chat saying Bowers won't go in the top 15. Calling it now. What's up, Hoove? Good to see you, man. And then we got Tom saying with other great tight end prospects at Georgia too. And Fizzle Dolan not feeling Jeff's rank of number 4, Brock Bowers either. Koopa Troop is saying hashtag tight ends don't matter. That's what you need to know about Bowers. Too many good wide receivers and quarterbacks that'll get that capital. So love the comments, guys. Let's go ahead and talk about some of those elite wide receiver prospects you just mentioned, Adam. Malik Nabers, wide receiver, LSU, coming in at number 5 for Jeff. Keon Coleman, FSU, wide receiver, coming in at number 6. And then, don't look now, it's Roma Dunes climbing up everyone's draft board out of Washington. Mike, who's your favorite wide receiver in this range? And do you think Jeff got it right that this is the next tier of wide receivers here?
It is, and I'd probably expand it to another 2 wide receivers that I'd definitely throw in that. But this right now, leading off with Malik Nabers, no complaints about that. He wouldn't be the next wide receiver for me, but this is, we are talking razor thin. This comes down to personal preference. It's going to come down to landing spot, how they test at the combine, what you're hearing about him in the pre-draft process. That's going to be real important. But these next 3 guys that he has listed, no issue with where they're at. It really just comes down to personal preference. Malik Nabers is amazing. He's had an awesome season. My personal favorite out of this group would be Keon Coleman. He just has so much damn Des Bryant to his game. So much damn Des Bryant to his athletic freak that returns punts, dangerous in the open field. Now, I've said this before, Des was a much better contested catch guy coming out. Bigger, knew how to use his body a little bit better. Keon needs to clean that part of his game up. But I also think Keon's a more polished route runner than Des was when he came out. So there's kind of that trade-off. Keon's really awesome. Odunze is kind of like a Marvin Harrison light. Like, not quite Maserati Marv.
Speak it.
But pretty close. Pretty damn close. Now, community consensus doesn't vault him into that territory because he plays in Washington. It's the Pac-12, and, they're not even going to be a Pac-12 next year. No one cares. Nobody watches the West Coast games. They're on at, 10 p.m. at night. We're all sleeping. So.
Good.
But Odunze is really good. So if you get a chance, and you get to watch a Pac-12 championship game, watch Michael Penix and Odunze go to work in that game because it's something special to watch him play.
Good. More for me and you,
More for us.
Go Will Ferrell on that one. I can't wait to watch him play in the bowl game and to get shares of him in Dynasty. For me, it's such a clear tier of those 3 for me. And they're up. Mike's going to talk about the 2 behind, and they're not really that far behind. That's why I talk about this 24 class being so deep. For me, Egbuka from Ohio State definitely should be considered in the mix here. But I'll say that Rome Odunze, man, is he's going to probably end up being the 3rd person in my rankings for this. I really think he has the upside that gets into the elite territory the way he plays the game.
Eric, right now, I mean, he's moving up all the NFL draft analyst board, potentially a top 5 pick now in the draft. Do you think that sticks? If you had to bet the over/under on Rome for the NFL draft, what do you think it would be? I think 5's probably a little generous, but would you take 7.5 under 7.5?
Ooh, I was going to easily take 5. I think he'll go pick 8 or later. So I guess that would put me on the over, right? Just that's less to do with how he profiles as a prospect and more to do with how teams think about building out their rosters through the draft, right? Like, it's a very short list of wide receivers who've gone inside the top 8, right? So, no shade to Rome. He's a phenomenal prospect. Like, he's one of these guys that, he can make a 50-50 ball 80-20 in his favor easily, right? So, him being drafted high is certainly not out of the mix, but if you're gonna make me put my money down, I think he goes 8 or later.
Okay. And last question on these wide receivers for you, Adam. Where do you value them in comparison to last year's rookie wide receivers outside of maybe JSN? Hooves kind of saying here in the chat that he thinks these guys compare to last year's. I think they're kind of a tier above, at least as far as prospects wise. Like, I really think Quentin Johnston was a pretty raw prospect coming into it last season. Zay Flowers had his moments, but still had some downfalls. And I think you could say a lot with the other wide receivers in last year's class. Are we feeling better about these guys? Are they a step above for you?
I would say the reality of this 24 class relative to last year's is, for me, it kind of worded very similar to that. But I would say Marvin Harrison Jr. is in a tier of his own. He's in like that, I would honestly say, God tier prospect-wise. Like, he just is. So you just put him in his own pile, right? And then you come back and I'd say JSN, like, he's probably in the tier realistically. The name value might have been a little more with JSN.
Yeah.
But I think realistically, he's kind of in the same tier. I'd put him in that same bucket as Nabers and these guys, Keon Coleman, right? And then I think the reality was last year's class, you saw some of the receivers get pushed up, which aren't necessarily as good as those 3 or Egbuka even for me. So I think that the 24 class both offers more upside and is a little bit deeper, frankly.
Okay. And we got Fizzle Dollar saying one of these guys will be in Cincy replacing Higgins. Whoever is may shoot to wide receiver 2 in this class. Yeah, landing spot I think is really going to matter as you kind of sort out here number 2 through 4 of the wide receivers. Let's add a couple more wide receivers to the bunch here. Troy Franklin, wide receiver, Oregon. A little bit more of a slender fella. And then Emeka Egbuka. I know one of us were clamoring him to be potentially in this tier we just talked about. How do we feel about them? Are they potential first-round draft capital guys in the NFL? I've seen them going anywhere from 15 all the way back to early second round here. Mike, how do you see this one shaking out for Franklin and Egbuka?
Yeah, those were the two guys that I kind of hinted at that should be considered with the group above them. Definitely, Egbuka can play on the outside, but he is very, very effective in the slot. Like that's the kind of thing that you want to see. And Troy Franklin is a very interesting guy. Right, he plays with more of that 6'3" like Mike Wallace type mold, like prime Mike Wallace. If you kind of want to consider that, and you're like, man, I don't know how a guy that big is that fast. He also kind of reminds you a lot of like DJ Chark too, like when he came out, but a hell of a lot more productive. A lot more productive. His analytics are going to be really good. So both these guys also need to be in consideration. So I have no problem with these in here. I think after that, though, there's a tier break, and then there's a couple other wide receivers that we'll get into that need to be in the conversation there for potential first-round picks as well. I think more of those guys kind of project as early day 2 kind of guys, early second-round picks. So
Yeah.
Not the worst case to be, though. Like, those are all very high guys. You know, we're talking about a lot of wide receivers with the potential to go in the top 50 of the NFL draft, which you should be paying attention to. And you're talking about how they could stack up. To me personally, JSN would be in this tier all the way down to Egbuka. You know, however you kind of want to split it up, he would slot in there.
Okay.
All the other wide receivers, though, every one of them, Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston, last year's class, they all slot in behind. They're all behind.
Agreed. I'm with Mike. And I think, like, the next group of guys, I could see some guys over the next few months definitely shaking this potentially up. Like, I've seen a lot of good stuff with moving up the ranks for Brian Thomas Jr. I do like his game. But for me, just right now, when I look at just prospect-wise, what they've done, where they're projecting to go, I think the line really draws after Troy Franklin and after Egbuka as well.
Perfect. Let's move on to the quarterbacks here. 10 and 11 in Jeff's rankings. J.J. McCarthy, quarterback, Michigan. This is just a guy with a fucking cannon and composure in the pocket. He wasn't at 100% here in the game on Saturday against Ohio State and still was making the right decisions, although they were going very run heavy, I think, because of that injury. Then Jayden Daniels. This is a guy, he transferred to LSU, had to put up with fucking everything going on at LSU the last couple years, and he's a dual threat quarterback. 40 passing touchdowns and 1,100 rushing yards last season, 10 touchdowns. Eric, who do you prefer here, the steady arm of McCarthy or the dual threat capabilities, the Konami code breaker of Jayden Daniels?
Yeah, I think in a fantasy context, I would probably lean towards Daniels, right? Like the Konami code is exactly right in terms of their ability to not only contribute in a meaningful way from a fantasy perspective quickly, right, but also their floor on any given week, right? Like we've kind of gotten spoiled with how effective rookie quarterbacks have proven to be over the last handful of years, but the reality is that for these more pocket bound passers in their rookie season, like there's plenty of ups and downs, in a lot of cases more downs than anything else, right? So as we kind of get outside of this top tier of quarterback options, I'll tend to err on the side that can do a little bit on the ground. So that has me looking at the LSU Tiger.
Adam, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, it's so hard right now. The way that Mike and I do our leagues is in Dynasty, we do a lot of these pre-NFL draft, rookie drafts.
Yeah.
And so I'll get all excited about guys. And, I think what I will say about J.J. McCarthy, I'll also throw Michael Penix into the mix here, Jayden Daniels. These guys right here, I'm going to get excited about more so Penix and Daniels, sorry. But the reality is for me with this pre-draft rookie thing, I don't want to shoot my shot too high on these guys because I don't think any one of them are guaranteed the draft capital that I want to. So in the pre-draft process, I think it's just important to know that they're in this mix And if they get the draft capital, like top 15-ish, you're talking about guys that are going to go ahead of some of these receivers for sure.
Yeah.
Just because of that in Superflex, right? But the reality is they all could end up not making the first round, and you see how that goes. I mean, Will Levis took a big fall, and he still went early second round and still had a very good game in the NFL in his rookie season. So it's not to say like they're completely dismissed, but their value, it will change drastically with draft capital. So I just think it's important to pulse and understand how much that is going to carry into their dynasty value.
Okay, all right. We got Dave in the chat. What's up, Dave? Good to see you, man. And then Bargustus saying, "How deep we going?" We said 12 in the header today, but we're actually going to go 14. So hang around for that, and make sure to hit that like button. We appreciate you, man. Thanks to everyone tuning in live with us as we continue to round this out. If you guys are new to the channel, thank you. Easiest way to support us is hit that subscribe button, and you can come back and hang out with us again. Let's round it out here with a couple more wide receivers. Adonai Mitchell and Xavier Worthy, both out of Texas. Mitchell's kind of that nice size receiver, but also a great separator. Meanwhile, we see a guy like Xavier Worthy, who had a ton of hype coming into this 2023 season, but has kind of fell down the ranks a little bit. There are the weight concerns at 172 pounds, and then just some ugly concentration drops. Mike, do you have a preference out of these two? And do you think Worthy dropping is justified?
I think Worthy would be the one I'd be the most interested in, because he has the one thing that you really can't teach, and that's that game-breaking speed, kind of like Jaylen had last year. Now, the drops are a big issue, but you could also see an NFL team falling in love with him. Like I was looking at a mock today that had him going to the Chiefs, at the end of the first round. Oh, right. Just we're going to do this shit all off season. And I tell you right now, if Xavier Worthy ended up in the first round to the Chiefs, people are going to be like salivating, right? There'll be people trying to, hey, pump the brakes. He couldn't catch shit in college. Yeah, we get it, but most of the dynasty community be losing their damn minds. So that'd probably be the one I'm most interested in. Adonai Mitchell, I don't know. There's just something about him. He's okay. Like for that size and his ability to separate, he should be doing more, in my opinion. I just never really got excited. Like more flaccid than anything. Yeah. Just watching him play sometimes. Xavier Legette is a guy that I think should be in this conversation. Really needs to be in this conversation as well. And if I'm going to go down to Xavier Legette, keep an eye on Jacob Cowing. Jacob Cowing is going to be one of those guys that wows in the pre-draft process, and all of a sudden you're going to hear that buzz. And you look up, and he's a back-end second-round pick, early third-round pick for a team, and that's a dude who could step in and produce right away. So we're far enough down in the wide receiver ranks where I'm starting to not really care too much. Legette and Xavier Worthy are probably the end of the list for me. Everybody else is going to fall after that, and I'm just looking for sleepers or draft capital.
Okay, love it. And Bubba saying in the chat, does age for any of these quarterbacks concern you, or is the NFL just starved so much for the position that doesn't matter as much? Does it concern you guys at all? We got 22-year-old Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, also 22. Eric, any pause at all?
No, not at all. Right, like in terms of shelf life, your quarterback is always going to be the longest lasting dynasty asset, assuming that one hits, right? And the NFL is so starved for viable starting talent at this position, right? Like, obviously there's going to be haves and have-nots any given year, but like you go out there and look at PJ Walker making a start this week, DeVito making multiple starts, right? Josh Dobbs being like a coveted draft or coveted trade deadline asset, right? Like, that tells you all you need to know about how much value even just functional NFL quarterback has. So, any of these guys fall in the right spot and hold the job for a while. I don't care if they come in when they're 22 or 20 or 21.
It's fucking crazy how many backup quarterbacks we're seeing right now, fellas. Like, put on your bootstraps, because we have seen some shitty football as of late. And I think it's kind of an epidemic that's not going to get any better until we change maybe the fields a little bit more to turf. And I think there's also just a little bit of a lack of offensive linemen, really outside of a top 5 for a team, maybe if that. And I feel like it leads to more injuries for quarterbacks. So, Mike, any concern for you on the quarterback's age here? Because I'm with Eric and I'm not concerned.
No, I'm not concerned at all. And if you really think about it, too, one thing I wanted to touch on, we listed a couple quarterbacks in Jayden Daniels, who's got a lot of excitement, J.J. McCarthy. But don't forget about Bo Nix. Don't forget about Michael Penix.
Omix is an old fucker. That guy's been playing college football for, I feel like, almost as long
About to
as
get
I
his
was in
AARP
college.
card.
But all these guys are entering this time of year with a realistic opportunity to be the QB3 in this class, to be a top 15 pick, to be maybe a surprise like top 7, top 5 even. Some team really falls in love with them and they take another quarterback. I think the most interesting thing would be it's hard to project how many quarterbacks we're going to get in the first round. And like Adam was talking about earlier, that really determines, whether I'm interested in you in Dynasty, right? What's your draft capital? Did the NFL team take you in the first round or not? Did they take you with a premium pick in the first round? Like, those are all the tiebreakers you look at. The biggest thing I have right now is it's so hard to project who that guy is going to be, right? I can tell you flat out right now, if you could tell me J.J. McCarthy was a QB3 of this class and he went in the top 15, and Jayden Daniels was a QB4 and he went in the top 20, all those wide receivers I talk glowingly about, move every one of them down the list.
Wow, really?
Except for
Okay.
Every single one of them. We play in superflex leagues. Quarterbacks run the world. I don't need another wide receiver on my team that's going to fall in that 12 to 32 range. There's a billion of those dudes out there, right? Because it doesn't stop at 32. We keep talking about them till it's in the 50s. So I want the quarterbacks because that runs superflex leagues. So the problem is I can't tell you who that guy's going to be. And right now I have no idea. Could be any one of these guys. And there's dudes on this list that we didn't even talk about, right? Like, what if Carson Beck goes on a great run here? He's been playing really well to end the season. He's draft eligible. He goes out and wins the Natty, like has a perfect season, plays really well. NFL scouts tell him your draft stock's high, you're going to be the third quarterback off the board. Maybe that's the dude, right? So just think about that when we're trying to rank these guys, and you're like, how there's no quarterbacks above these wide receivers? Because we just really don't know. Some team could hate J.J. McCarthy and he doesn't go in the first round. Hell, he could decide he wants to come back to school. So we're just kind of in this spot where we really don't know yet who this QB3 is. But I can tell you once we do have it solidified and I know that they went into the first round, they're moving up above a bunch of these wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, to the age question, it doesn't matter. The NFL starved enough, and I remember a guy that's almost 30 getting drafted in the first round as a Browns fan, Brandon
Weeden,
so
baby, yeah.
None of these guys are that, so I'm good, man. I'm good.
How old was Brandon Weeden? 28?
He was 28, going to be 29. He was almost 29 when he got drafted. For example, it was 2012. All right, I just got home from playing college basketball. He was almost 30 and got drafted after I was done playing college at 22. So it was insane.
Oh, good old Brandon Weeden. We got Tyler in the chat saying, great stuff tonight, folks. Can't wait for Dynasty rookie season. Deep class, and seems like with NFL roster movement next season, a lot of opportunity for incoming rookies to hit. Yeah, this is going to be a great 2024 class. It's been great to see them on the gridiron in college this year as well. Draft prospects. What's up, guys? What's up, man? Thanks for tuning in tonight. Buddy? We appreciate you. Guys, let's go ahead and round it out here with TreVeyon Henderson, running back for Ohio State.
Let's go.
And this is interesting because usually running backs are pushed up fantasy drafts just because we need these guys. There aren't a lot of good ones on our rosters right now. And yet the first one in Jeff's ranking comes in at number 14. Do you think Henderson ultimately gets pushed up, or another running back like Shipley, Bucky Irving? Are these guys going to make that jump where they're pushing some of these quarterbacks or wide receivers we've talked about down? Henderson's kind of a tough case to solve. He's had the injury concerns, but he had that dynamite 2021 freshman season. Are we looking past some of this and glowing about Henderson, Adam?
So I would say this, like, TreVeyon was a guy for me at that time, 2021. I was just, oh my gosh, I cannot wait for this guy to come out. 2024 class is loaded. Braylon Allen, all these other guys.
Braylon Allen, yeah.
Will Shipley. But there's a couple things happening. So one, to the point, like, it used to be that running backs would go up. Now, in general, even the old, Mike and I, the old heads, the RB truthers, we've learned that, one, the production isn't guaranteed. Two, the injuries are higher risk. And three, now the entire community has come around and said, we don't care about this position. So for Mike and I, we play a lot of the leverage game that you guys were talking about earlier, right? And it's like, okay, there's injury risk. If they don't produce early, there's not enough shelf life in Dynasty. And I don't have as much flexibility in trading. So the reality for me is that the only way these guys are going to get pushed up into is 100% determined on when they get drafted and probably a little bit of who they're getting drafted by, right? Even we saw this year with Charbonnet, he got drafted to a team that just drafted Kenneth Walker.
Yeah.
And it in the second round, we didn't really care, right? So I think the draft capital and when they get drafted is huge and who they're going to. But I think the other thing is, for me, I'm probably not going to mess around with any of these guys in the first round unless there's just something rare, because there's too many good receivers in this class that are safer and just as well traded in Dynasty. And I can probably go and find a way to get other running backs elsewhere or later in the draft class. I don't have to have the first one in this class is the other thing. I like Rocket Sanders. I like Braylon Allen. I like there's other guys that I'm comfortable getting. I don't have to get the first running back off the board.
Mike, how many actual running backs do you see going in day 1 or day 2 of the NFL draft? I remember last year at this time, I'm screaming Chase Brown and all these names that just didn't really come to fruition here come April.
This is going to be a tough one. How many running backs should go day 1? The answer is 0. But I'm not going to put it at 0% because we see NFL teams do stupid shit all the time. Travis Etienne, Najee Harris, they shouldn't have been first-round picks a few years ago, but they were. So it is what it is at that point. I don't think any of these guys are worthy of it. They're definitely not on the level of Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson, who we saw go in the first round. Early second or mid-second is a clear possibility for some of these guys if they fall in love with them. They are definitely more talented than if you think about Kendre Miller, if you think about Zach Charbonnet, if you think about that kind of group who were day 2 running backs last year.
Yeah.
They're much more talented. TreVeyon Henderson has some injury concerns. Braylon Allen looks like a walking, spitting 19-year-old image of what Derrick Henry was like coming out of college, like a freak show, who can also coincidentally catch the ball. Rocket Sanders, bad year for him, but he had a lot of hype as of last year, the size, speed freak. So all these guys are extremely talented. Like Adam said, it's just going to be a matter of where they get drafted. I think day 2, early day 2 is a possibility for 1 or 2 of these guys. And the community probably still won't really care. They probably still don't. This is the beauty of this class, though. So think about this: if you're picking at the 106, there's going to be a possibility that you walk yourself into a round 2 running back, like an round 2 NFL running back that got good draft capital to a decent enough spot, and he's available when you come back on the clock again to 205 or 206. Because of all these potential quarterbacks who could go, all these wide receivers that we're going to be talking about, a guy like Brock Bowers who's going to get pushed up. And don't sleep on another guy.
Sanders, man.
Don't sleep on another guy at the tight end position who's going to test like a freak athlete that people are going to start to cream their pants over. Jayden Sanders out of Texas. So this class is extremely deep. The second round is going to be amazing to have picks in. I know everybody's going to want the first-round picks, but if you can gobble up these second-rounders, like these contender seconds that people just throw around like they're nothing, take them. Take the 210. It's going to be a decent player. It's going to be a player with some upside. So it's just great, too, that we've gotten all the way to 14, and we just bring up the potential first running back. And then I'll give you 3 right after it. You know,
right.
I don't know who it's going to be. Braylon Allen, Rocket Sanders, Neal. Neal is a hell of a running back out of Kansas. Like, that's a guy that you really should pay attention to. We get to see a little bit of Ray Davis. Ray Davis has had some extreme moments this year. So there's a lot of running backs. Bucky Irving is another guy that you were talking about earlier, too. That's a guy that I really like. Has a little bit of Christian McCaffrey, in my opinion, to his game, right? Just the way he moves and operates on the field. So hell of a class. And it's so weird, Adam. This is the first time we're ever talking, and we're getting pick 14, 15, 16 before we even mention a running back.
It is. And the thing is, all those guys that Mike mentioned, if they were where he said, if they're if they're definitely day 2 and round 2 especially picks, like, people will pay attention. The thing is, outside of probably TreVeyon Henderson, just because of his talent, I don't think he's going to like slide all the way back. But if any one of these guys, let's say, gets drafted in end of round 4, like when we start getting the compensation picks in round 5, people ain't going to care, man. So that's the thing about them, is understand that the names are good, understand how they do in the prospect, like the combine and all that. But if they miss the high-end pick side, no one's going to give a shit. So that's part of why I think the community as a whole doesn't really care that much about the running back position today.
Okay. And I like what you said about the second round picks kind of being worth potentially a little bit more if you need a running back in this year's upcoming draft. Eric, who are a couple guys you might be potentially selling if you're not a contender? Cortland Sutton kind of comes to mind for me. I don't know what his future in Denver looks like. Marquise Hollywood Brown. I think maybe Marvin Harrison could end up on the Cardinals, and that takes his value way down. Are there any other veteran names that come to mind for you, Eric, that maybe we should be shopping around to maybe see if we can't jiggle loose a second rounder?
Yeah, I mean, some of these names you can probably get more than a second rounder. I guess it depends on the market of your dynasty league, right? But like, I operate with pretty hard and fast rules around age, right? So like when a running back is in their age 26 season, like they need to be off my roster about as fast as I can get them off.
Yeah.
Same thing with wide receivers at 28. Sometimes I'll make an exception, push to 29. So I'm not at all afraid of moving on from some of these older assets, right? If you can still get any value for the very old Cooper Kupp, smell you later, right? Devonta Adams, some of the names that you mentioned, right? Like for me, I'm always trying to get into that peak age range for these players. So, you obviously get as much as you can, but specifically in this upcoming draft, if you're walking away with multiple seconds or you're stacking up a second this year and a second next year for some of these players, like take that all day.
Hell yeah. We got Daniel asking the question of the night for Mike. Any Iowa players he should be targeting?
I'll give you two, but I can't tell you for sure if they're going to come out or not because
Okay.
they both suffered massive injuries, like season-ending injuries, and were gone. The first one I'll give you is Eric All, the tight end out of Iowa. Imagine that, tight end you, stand up, let's go. I don't know if he'll be able to have any eligibility to come back. The college eligibility rules anymore confuse the shit out of me. You got dudes coming back for your 7th, 8th year, it feels like.
Yeah.
They've been in college since I was in college, which was a long time ago. But if he does come out, has no eligibility remaining, by all means, look at Eric Hall. And surprise, surprise, another tight end, Luke Lachey. Okay. I've been on big Luke Lachey since probably about week 2. I was a little skeptical that he was going to be the guy. Week 2, he was entirety of Iowa's offense right up until he got hurt. Now, the problem with him is I think he'll probably come back. He has eligibility remaining, so he'll probably come back to Iowa and play out another year there. But if I'm wrong and he comes out, pay attention to him. And in your dynasty drafts, instead of being that sucker that takes Brock Bowers at the 104, take Luke Lachey at the 304 and thank me later. Sam Laporta, you're welcome for everybody who listened on him last year.
Let's go. Some free advice there from Mike. Daniel saying he's in a startup and has no first or seconds after this season. Going to be interesting to see how much it takes to trade back in. It gets more expensive the more you wait, in my opinion, Daniel. I think that the more rookie season gets a little more hype behind it, it's going to be tough. Guys, we have a lot more in the show left for you. We're going to talk about our top 5 Christmas specials, then get to your questions in from the forum and in the scope. But we are going to first let Mike and Adam go. Guys, thanks so much for blessing us with your time today. How can we best support you, South Harmon Fantasy Football, and all the shitheads moving forward, man?
Oh, man, just keep doing what you guys are doing, man. I just like having friends in this space. I'm not going to come on here and promote my own shit, but you want to come check it out, go look at South Harmon stuff or find me on Twitter. It doesn't really matter at Iowa Michael. But that's all I got. I'm not a big promotional guy. I just really appreciate hopping on. This is the second time I think I've been on this show. A few times I've done stuff with Seth. Eric, you're awesome. Love everything you guys got going on over here. So even though it was last minute, Adam and I like, fuck it, we'll move some shit around. We got this. We're going to come on and hang out with our buddies, man, and talk Dynasty football and rookies. So that's the best way to support us is just keep being good content creators and really good people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is my second time coming on with these guys, Eric and Seth. It's been fun. If you want to support us, you can go check us out, our South Harmon stuff. But South Harmon FF, YouTube, X, I guess my ATM 40 chess is pretty bad follow, so that's why I normally don't promote it. But yeah, you want to check our stuff out, that's where you do it. But yeah, keep doing what you guys are doing, man. I love seeing the growth and seeing the show production and what you guys are doing. So just keep at it, man. Great stuff.
Thank you, guys. I greatly appreciate it. And your guys' friendship is not taken light either, man. Seriously, it's been one of the blessings of my 2022 is getting to meet the guys over at Shit. So thank you guys so much. Make sure you guys are opening a new tab on YouTube, checking out South Harmon Fantasy Football. Thank you guys so much, and we'll catch you soon. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time. We'll have to do this again real soon here, and maybe a follow up once we get some more rookie information.
Yes,
huh?
sir.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, we'll
Thanks,
catch you guys later. Thank you. All right, and Eric, we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna bring in Kyle here in a second as well. We're gonna let him get ready. Shout out to the IBM boys. IBT fizzle, but close enough, man. IBM Watson, I think, has IBM trademark, so we can't go there. Yeah. So we can't go IBM, but nonetheless, Kyle, what's up, man? How's the show been from the back end, my dude?
What's up? It's been very good. And fun fact, IBM is trademarked. It's one of the largest companies in the world.
Just
we should have thought about this.
Yeah.
Where was the brainstorm sesh?
Where was it? Fizzle saying, my fault, bro. I'm driving. No, dude, no, don't.
You good?
Yeah, don't pay attention to the road, my dude. Kyle, let's talk about Christmas specials, man, because this all kind of started Saturday night, couple beers deep, a couple joints deep as well, if I may add. But you were kind of talking shit on the Grinch and said that the best Christmas or best Grinch was the Christmas special version. So talk about that and just your love for Christmas specials.
Yeah, so the original How the Grinch Stole Christmas animated special from, I think, the 60s, maybe early 70s.
Yeah.
It is, I think it's the best Christmas special probably ever. It is all killer, no filler. So number one, you have to remember this is based on a children's story. It is based on a picture book written by a guy named Dr. Seuss. This is not
a real
high
doctor.
literature. This is not. It's about a green fuzzy guy that hates Christmas, right? You don't have to get too deep into it. You don't have to really think about it too hard. He doesn't like Christmas. It's a fun movie. There's good songs. Then he likes Christmas and everyone's happy. It's a great arc. The remakes, they just put too much shit in it. The Jim Carrey one, I don't care that he got bullied in middle school. I don't. Care that
I like the background. I like building the character.
Why?
It makes him more dynamic at the end.
He cut his face shaving. What does that add to? Oh, he hates Christmas.
I don't know. You just learn about him, you know? You learn about him, and then at the end, when he makes the turnaround, you feel so happy. Eric, these are your rankings here, Grinch and F everything else. So you're also on this 30-minute old cartoon version of the Grinch?
Man, Kyle has never been more correct in anything I've heard him utter.
Get out of
these
here,
airways.
fuckers.
Right? Like, How the Grinch Stole Christmas is the quintessential perfect Christmas series, movie, whatever you want to call it, right? Like, in general, and this probably makes sense because I love the Grinch so much, you can kind of miss me on Christmas specials. Like, not really a whole lot of appeal for me. Those claymation ones kind of freak me out, if I'm being honest.
Wow.
And therefore, like, I kind of have to like the Grinch. Soundtrack, absolute banger, right? Like,
soundtrack is yeah.
Dude, if you're trying to tear the house down at karaoke around the holidays, like, fire up a You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, place is gonna go bonkers, right? Like, and I guess the only place where I deviate with Kyle a little bit, the most recent Illumination version of How the Grinch Stole Christmas was okay. It was probably the closest to the original, and they really zoomed in on the dynamic between the Grinch and his dog Max. And dude, I can appreciate like a dog being your day one, ride or die with you up in the mountains when you're shut out from Whoville, right? Like, definitely like going a little bit deeper there, but I mean, none of it holds a candle to the OG.
Okay, fair enough. Eric, take us through your other here in the rankings, and apparently a couple of these are claymation, so you're already talking shit on some of your ranks.
Yeah, I mean, look, like, you want to talk about a tier break, and this is as big as it gets. Santa Claus is coming to town. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Those are the only claymation ones that I'll stomach. mainly because shout out Yukon Cornelius. That guy's my dog.
Yukon,
Special-
yeah.
Dude,
Kind of looks like Kyle.
Dude, Kyle, you need to you work out that beard a little bit more, and you're there. You're absolutely there. All you need is a sled dog team comprised of like the most random assortment of dogs in the world, and you're right there in that world. Santa Claus is coming to town. Like the land of misfit toys was kind of cool, right? Like that's a reference I use often. And then honorable mention, I guess, Pinky in the Brain. I definitely watched this joint on loop. I have since gone back as an adult trying to indoctrinate my children into Pinky in the Brain, and it didn't really stand the test of time quite as well as I would hope. So these are the ones that I definitely watch the most, but I mean it's the Grinch and everybody else.
Kyle, your thoughts and your rankings.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much is the Grinch and F everybody else. You gotta have, I mean, I'm the world's biggest Snoopy fan. I don't know if you guys know this about me.
No, wasn't aware.
Christmas special.
Say more.
While not my favorite Peanut special, is a fantastic Christmas special. Very preachy, but still very fun. Snoopy is the best. Santa Claus is coming to town, and Year Without a Santa Claus, very similar. Both Rankin Bass stop motion joints. Fun. Year Without a Santa Claus, Heat Miser, Cold Miser, great. Underrated, I think. And Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas, that was just the fifth one that I found. It's 3 stories in one, so you get more bang for your buck, and it's Disney. It's a good one to throw on at like 4:30 on Christmas when no one's paying attention and like in a food coma.
Fair
Like,
enough.
That's what that movie's for.
I've never seen Santa Claus is coming to town. Everyone else has hyped this up. So is that the one about the mailman, right?
It's not about the mailman, but it starts with the mailman. Yeah,
It involves a mailman.
It's about Santa Claus, Seth.
Okay. Well, you know,
Santa Claus, he's coming to town in this one.
we got Daniel saying jingle all the way, Island of Misfit Toys, and a 2025 first rounder for Christmas special Grinch contender Superflex 10 team. I like it.
Get out of here with that insulting offer.
Oh,
Got to step it up, Daniel. Gonna pry the Grinch away from me.
Tyler saying context is everything, referring back to the live action Grinch. I'm with you there, Tyler. I'll round us out here with a couple of my favorite Christmas specials. First of all, Grandma Got Ran Over by a Reindeer is an absolute fucking banger. I don't know why everyone hates this special. This one is great. There's a lot of subtlety. There's a lot of just greatness with it. I don't know. I think overall, like the country accents from the characters are kind of fun. The twist at the end is great. So I love Grandma's Got Ran Over by a Reindeer.
Seth, did you just say there's a lot of subtlety?
Yeah,
There's a lot of
there's layers to
subtlety
Grandma Got Run Over by a
reindeer.
There is, man. There is. You learn a lot. Later on about the elves and the workshop. There's a lot going on in this one, man. I think it's a full hour too, so I think you get a little bit more than some of these half-hour Johns.
Bonus.
It's a half hour because they really had to cram all that in, huh?
Who killed it? Do you remember who who ran over Grandma?
Little reindeer?
The reindeer.
No, go watch it. I'm not gonna spoil it, but yeah, go watch it. You'll learn.
Wait, is this like a true crime story?
Yeah,
like
that's
really
what I'm
the neighbor
saying.
with like a grudge.
Yes, it's literally a true crime. That's why it was everything, man. It was a great.
Oh man, I love this. All right,
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, show it to the kids. The kids will like it. And also shout out the Drake and what's that?
So no, they won't. No one's gonna like it.
Yeah.
You can
Also,
show it to them.
Hey.
show them the Drake and Josh Christmas special as well. That's kind of a fun one. That was like the most recent Drake and Josh we got, Kyle. Give us a break, man. That was like 2 years after the last episode. We deserved that. That was fun.
Why are you showing kids that though?
I don't know. They might. Eric, do your kids know what Drake and Josh is?
No idea.
How old are they?
They are 9 and 6.
Get them on it, especially the 9-year-old. Get them on it. Show them what's up. They're on Netflix.
Man, I'm getting mixed reviews here based on the nonverbal cues from Kyle.
Kyle doesn't know
I
anything.
might have
Kyle
to
doesn't
screen
know.
this before I put it in front of my children.
Kid. I don't know if kids are gonna like it now. I don't know.
I think it still holds up. There's a lot of dumb comedy in it.
What
I don't know.
what I can say definitively, like I've tried to pass on all of my like 90s 2000s eras children's TV programming onto my kids. The animated ones still slap. Like they'll lock into those and just totally power through seasons at a time. All of the live action ones, they're not here for it. They're like, I don't want to see real people doing things. Get out of here. Give me an animated cat that's also affixed to a dog as the back half of his body.
Bummer. They're not going to get to watch Phil the Future, Hannah Montana, like all these good, shame me. Miley Cyrus is a clinic.
Watch Phil the Future.
Phil the Future was a banger too.
They're not going to watch Even Stevens.
Even Stevens, that was the next one that came up to. Yeah, get him. Come on, Eric.
Watch Lizzie McGuire.
Eric, you should ban all
I've
animated
tried.
shows. Ban all
I've
animated
tried,
shows.
right?
So you got to go live action here for a week.
I'll offer it up, right? But like you can lead a horse to water. Like those kids are off the couch and trying to like wake me up, break something in my house within 10 minutes of any live action show I put on the TV.
Oh, I love it, guys. Kyle, I appreciate your Christmas special knowledge tonight, and we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna flip over to From the Forum and answer some questions for the good people out there tonight in the IBT family chat. Kyle, we appreciate you and your movie and special knowledge. Thank you.
If you're up, stuck, thinking about what to do, hear it in between, we got advice for you. Back and forth all day, trying to pick the play. Let's hear what them boys here had to say.
Presented by the Fantasy Football Advice Network.
The Fantasy Football Advice Network. If you guys haven't heard of it yet, I suggest you go over to fantasyfootballadvice.com. This is a platform that brings together fantasy football creators and fans everywhere, and it combines different platforms like Instagram, Facebook, whether you're into Patreon, all of that stuff into one platform. And I seriously get great advice on there every week. I think I and other people in the community are giving great advice over there, and just kind of get over there and check it out as soon as you can. It's free to join. And honestly, man, like I don't ask a lot of questions on Twitter. I don't get a lot of people who ask me questions anymore on Twitter, Eric, because there's so much other good stuff going on Twitter. But like at the advice forum, it's like straight fantasy football, straight to the point. You can get your answer. So highly suggest that people get over there and check that out.
Yeah, completely agree, right? Like, by all means, if you have questions on Twitter, hit any of us up. We're happy to answer them, right?
Yeah,
but like
for sure.
Having this dedicated place in the FF Advice Forum to just go and hammer through start-sit questions, rest of season ranking questions, like it's so nice to have it just completely compartmentalized in that way.
Yeah, and then you got the league classifieds. You got so many other features on this great app. They have the app. They have also a website desktop version as well. You can check out. So having those different communication efforts with people in the fantasy football community is great to have. So we appreciate them for powering this segment. Here's a question we got from the forum. It is David Njoku or Pat Freiermuth this week and rest of season from our guy Dems here. How are we feeling about it, Eric? I mean, we saw finally Pat Freiermuth. He was my all-in pick this year. Come to fruition only 12 weeks later. Great week for him. How do you feel about him and also our pal Dave Njoku, who's just been putting on a clinic lately?
Yeah, these are two guys that are right next to each other in terms of this season, in terms of this week's rankings, and right next to each other for rest of season rankings. I'm gonna go Pat Freiermuth here.
Wow.
Oddly enough, if it was DTR still going in, I would probably give the lean to Njoku just because he's pulling a Josh Dobbs, just peppering his tight ends with targets. And while PJ Walker isn't shy about doing that as well, he's not at that kind of different pace that we saw with DTR. And also, I mean, it's only a 1-game sample. Your lures are actually running like a legitimate offense now. You know what I mean? Like, Matt Canada was out there calling plays, but like none of it was cohesive or logical flowed together as like a game plan, right? And now like you're going through progressions and like you're doing things in like a measured and purposeful way, right? And like, I mean, that tells you all you need to know about Matt Canada, that's the standard. But I mean, he's out of the way, and I think that it does point the arrow up on just about everybody on the Steelers offense.
The entire Matt Canada regime, we had no 400-yard games. And I say we because I'm a Steelers fan who's had to sit through this for years. Yes. And first game without him, we go over 400 yards. So I do love Muth. I love the 11 targets, 9 receptions, 120 yards for him. However, I still think there are more mouths to feed in this Pittsburgh offense. We know the running backs are going to be involved. We know Deontay Johnson's going to get his. Hopefully, he didn't have the best looking play on Sunday, if you know what I mean. And then George Pickens as well. So it's a tougher schedule for me. And like, meanwhile, dude, like Dave Njoku has been a clinic. And I do agree that I would prefer if it was DTR moving forward, but double-digit PPR points in 6 games straight for Dave Njoku, averaging 9.3 targets in that span. That is kind of propped up by that 115 target game that we saw just a couple weeks ago, Eric. But I just think it's steadier and it's safer with Njoku. Whoever is at quarterback, whether it's PJ Walker, hopefully it's not Footsteps. I don't think Footsteps would be the upgrade people think he is. So I think I would go Njoku. I think we're split on this one, man. I just, for the next 5 matchups for him are plus matchups as well. So I like David a lot.
Yeah, look, I mean, these guys are right next to each other in terms of the rankings, right? So like, I don't think there's, a meaningful difference between the two.
Yeah.
If you're forcing me to give another tiebreaker, I would much prefer Pat Freiermuth's matchup this week against the Arizona Cardinals,
yes,
right? Like,
yes, I agree.
Absolutely beat them up over the middle of the field, right? So, if that's the tiebreaker that, kind of has you going that way for this week, then you can just as well ride out the rest of the season with Muth as you can with Njoku, in my mind.
I love it. We got Daniel saying, if I'm a new Steelers offensive coordinator, I'm feeding Muth. Hey, they love it, and I was glad to see it. Although I just had to drop Muth actually from a redraft team. I was stashing him. I just didn't have the roster spot, and I had Travis. So that was kind of a bummer. Daniel asking, is Tank Dell the fantasy death of John Metchie? Height, weight, tape seems so similar. Eric, you are a residential Houston Texans fan and a content creator over there at High Point. Am I right on the name of that?
Yeah, nailed it.
Okay, yeah. So what do we think about John Metchie here? Is there any hope for him long term? I mean, Tank Dell has taken the league by storm as a rookie, and we still got other emerging guys in this offense, Noah Brown and Nico Collins as well.
Yeah, so I have to assume this is a dynasty question, right? And if that's the case, I think Metchie is still a hold. The Tank Dell has absolutely been a revelation for this team, a revelation in the league, right? Like one of, if not arguably, the best draft day value in the entire NFL draft this year. But he is but a man. There's still 2 to 3 other wide receiver spots on this roster to be filled out. While Noah Brown has looked fantastic, like, I don't think that he's in the very long-term plans for the Houston Texans. You're also going to have Bobby Trees heading out the door before long, right? Like, obviously Tank Dell is here to stay as far as the Texans wide receiver core, but that third or fourth option, that door is still very much so wide open. And Metchie is an open question. Like, he is a high pedigree product out of Alabama. He brings a lot of talent and a lot of skill set to the field. If he gets the opportunity, he could certainly contribute in a somewhat meaningful way, probably as soon as next year even. So he's a bit more of a hold, but to the overall point, the ceiling is certainly capped with Tank Dell, right? Like, the hopes that you stash Metchie and he might figure out a way to become the wide receiver 1 in Texans and for the Texans is are all but dashed at this point.
I'm with you, man. It's been a bummer to kind of see how his career has unfolded so far. But I like that you're preaching patience, Eric, because that's something I don't think I preach enough of sometimes in my analysis. So I appreciate you kind of being that steadfast rock for us on this program. Let's go ahead and round it out tonight, guys. Appreciate the question, Daniel. Thanks so much for tuning in tonight, man. Let's go ahead and round out the show with none other than In the Scope.
I have the TARs in my sights.
Requesting permission to engage.
In the Scope.
All right, we're not going to go over the mainstream waiver wire options tonight, but you can check them out on the website, inbetweenmedia.com. Our waiver wire article already drops, always drops on Monday, so you can check that out. And then we'll also have In the Scope, the article version of this, out on Wednesday tomorrow. So let's start with some more under the radar characters here this week, here heading into week number 13, Eric. These are players you can grab potentially after waivers run or for a zero fab bid. So who are we buying low on the waiver wire streets this week?
Yeah, so I've got two. I'll start with the main option, which for me is Jaylen Guyton. 2.2% owned. I believe these are Yahoo figures that we're looking at. So, very much so widely available. And if nothing else, like, he is the prime example of the war of attrition that is 2023 NFL play, right? Like, there's a chance that he might be the primary wide receiver / pass catching option for the Chargers this week, right? Like, this core is completely banged up. They've got several guys that are already expected to be out, several guys that are looking very questionable. So, by hook or by crook, like, he's going to be out there a lot. In their last two games, week 10 and week 12, he had an 85% route participation rate. He very much so is their downfield option, right? Like, his ADOT is far and away the deepest among the available receivers on the team. Even in that Ravens game, right? There were so many times where, they were pushing the ball to him down the field, and it took a spectacular play by the Ravens secondary to keep it from getting into his hands, right? So, someone that I don't think we're going to see many people prioritize because those plays weren't connected, right? They were broken up. So he doesn't have that, that gaudy box score that everyone can seek out from last week. So should be able to get Jaylen Guyton on the cheap. And in my my honorable mention, I did this a few weeks ago with A.T. Perry. Pop Douglas, 35% rostered for the New England Patriots. Obviously, no one's going out of their way to get in the New England Patriots business, but he's kind of similar to Guyton, right? Like, he's one of the limited options out there. He's running a ton of routes. He's seeing a fair number of targets per his route run. And the New England Patriots are heading into bye week this week. So ultimately, you can probably get him after waivers run. And whenever you head back into week 14, he'll be a very meaningful depth piece for a playoff run.
Pop, baby, a little pop. Yeah, I like both those calls. Jaylen Guyton was a guy I called out a couple weeks ago as my sure thing sleeper of the week. Didn't play in that game, ended up being banged up with a groin injury. He was back here against the Ravens. And yeah, Kyle Hamilton flying around the fucking field, really bumming me out for a couple of those Jaylen Guyton shares that I had rolling into week number 12, specifically in DFS. So yeah, that was a bummer, but still good to see 5 targets from him. So I like the call. I'm going to shift over to 2 defense / special teams that I think people should be picking up here as we head to the playoffs. And I know these aren't sexy, guys. I know that we're at the point where we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. We're talking about defenses, but this is where you can get ahead for these championship runs. The Colts are my favorite this week. They're at Tennessee, and then they go to Cincinnati. Then they're home against Pittsburgh, at Atlanta, and then against the Raiders to end out the season. And this team, man, like the Colts have actually been pretty good. And when you're looking at that schedule, you really, really like it. 3 straight games of 12 or more fantasy points. Defense / special teams number 7 on a points per game basis. 6 in interceptions, 11th in total turnovers, and 6 in sacks. Like, those are the key metrics for your defense / special teams. They're going to give up a lot of points. You're going to have to stomach that throughout your game. You don't really want to watch, scoreboard watch with this. But at the end of the day, they're coming through here. Gus Bradley is getting these boys, Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed. They're doing a great job in that linebacker core. And the secondary is trash, but I think when you have good linebackers and guys like DeForest Buckner and Kwity Paye up front, you could do worse. You could do worse in the Colts. So 15.8% rostered. I'd pick them up after waivers run. And then Jacksonville Jaguars, they're a little more heavily rostered, 26.2%, but they're at Cincy and then Cleveland. You got 2 backup quarterbacks. And then Baltimore, that's kind of where you might have to drop them. But then Tampa Bay, Carolina, Tennessee to round it out. They're a much more middle of the road defense. I don't have a lot of advanced metrics on them other than being top 6 in turnovers. But consider the Jaguars defense as well for yourself this week if you're looking for just someone to play this week and have down the road. So, Eric, your thoughts on these defenses and defenses in general and their importance as we head down the stretch?
Yeah, stream them is my thoughts on defenses pretty much at all times. But that's not a hard and fast rule, right? Like you highlighted a couple of teams here that have some very favorable schedules down the stretch run. So you don't have to cut anyone in any given week if their opponent the following week is also a plus spot. And I like the 2 calls that you made. The thing with the Jaguars, I might prefer them a bit.
Ooh.
Especially if you're in a situation where you might have a first round bye, right? Like if you can just skip on over that Ravens matchup on December 17th.
Yeah, that's
like
the thing.
This is really the prime thing, right? Like you mentioned Jacksonville, they generate turnovers fairly well. They're actually a pretty strong run defense overall. And with the list of quarterbacks that you ran down a moment ago, if they're able to neutralize the run, they can probably beat up on those let's call them below average NFL passers on the other side of the equation, right? So don't mind the Jags, don't mind either call, but yeah, for Jacksonville, working your way around that Ravens matchup is going to be a must.
Great call, man. Great call with that for sure. So if you guys are in a position where you're the number 1 or 2 seed in your league, you got that first round bye. Consider adding Jacksonville. They probably would be the preferred one then. And if not, Colts, I think they just, more consistency. And I know you like to stream defenses, and I usually do as well, Eric, but I think like there are some benefits to having a consistent defense. Like a couple weeks ago, I saw that the Vikings had a stretch where they had Atlanta, the Saints, Denver, Chicago. I picked them up and rode them in about 4 leagues. It's nice just not to have to worry about it for a couple weeks, and know you have some good matchups on the other side of it.
Man, shout out Brian Flores too. Like that Minnesota Vikings defense is not good from a talent standpoint. And like he's got these guys playing at a respectable level, right? Like most of the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season, I was out here just beating up on this Vikings defense, and he's gotten these boys in order. So tip of the cap, right? Like damn good defensive coordinator. Hope he finds his way into another head coaching opportunity.
I agree, man. I agree. Yeah. Against Chicago on Monday night, they might have lost the game ultimately, but they won me a fantasy matchup. I needed them in a close one. So shout out B-Flow. We love you, man. Also love the IBT family. Thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. That was awesome to have Mike and Adam on over from shit earlier in the program. If you guys came over with them, thank you so much. And Kyle, thank you for being in the back end as always, man. We appreciate you guys. And hey, we'll see you on Friday. We got a fun show planned for the people, Eric. So hope everyone enjoys the rest of your week, and we'll catch you then. Until then, keep it in between.